Welcome back to Matter of Facts. I'm Phil Rabelais. Today we are going to take a look at actually my wife's carry gun. Last time we were talking about my Canik C100, which is my choice for carry gun, semi-automatic, double-stack 9mm. My wife is honestly more of a revolver person, so this more closely fit her needs. This is a Smith Wesson 642 Airweight. Those of you that have been around revolvers for a while might look at this and say, well, that's a J-frame, and that's not an accurate term. Smith Wesson uses different codes for their different frames. The J-frame would be the little bitty one. This is rated for 38 Special Plus P. I can tell you from experience shooting this, because this is the Airweight is the aluminum frame version. This weapon will have pretty reasonable recoil if you're shooting anything reasonably hot out of it. Not intolerable, good self-defense gun, but you're not going to shoot stout 38 Special out of this thing at the range for fun, because this is an extremely light weapon. I can tell you from experience, having handled this and a steel frame gun side by side, this is noticeably lighter, which is going to make this a lot nicer to carry. It's going to make it a little bit more authoritative on recoil. True to form for Smith & Wesson's, opening the cylinder release is going to be pushing forward, then pushing out the cylinder. We are clear, just for the internet range officer Nazis who are going to freak out on me if I don't show the gun is clear. Typical 38, it's a typical revolver. We've got a trigger, cylinder release, no safeties other than Smith & Wesson's infamous lawyer lock. Thank y'all for that, by the way. I would love to find one of these without that goofy contraption right there on it. You want to know what you want to know what a perfect way to save a revolver is? Either make sure it's clear, or put it in the hands of somebody that is trained to operate it, and it'll be perfectly safe. Those of you who are out there in the audience who are going to use this thing, I advise you to reconsider. If that is engaged to lock this gun up, which is what it's going to do, and it's the middle of the night, it's dark, somebody kicks in your door, and you need to get the gun in action quickly, sticking a little bitty key into there that you're likely to lose is going to get you killed. So let's just all make peace with the idea that I don't approve of this thing, I don't like it. That key stays right next to the gun where my wife keeps this, so that in case it gets engaged, we can disengage it quickly, but it's not the kind of thing we use on a regular basis. We secure our firearms in such a way that my child has no access to them, but in such a way that we can quickly gain access to them when we need them. So that's my whole spiel about lawyer locks. I really wish we would all get away from those silly things. Real quick, I'll go through the contents of the box. For any of you that buy Smith & Wesson's, you'll know that this is not normal. This is a very nice hard plastic case that I actually spent some money on at Smith & Wesson to get. Because Smith & Wesson feels like when you buy a $400+ revolver, they send it to you in a cardboard box, and that is somehow, that's acceptable. Smith & Wesson, gotta love them. So I don't have the original cardboard box to show you. I threw that thing in the trash and got this shortly after. I do, however, have all the contents, because I'm just a nerd about keeping this kind of stuff. So we have the keys for the goofy little lawyer lock that I've never used, I don't anticipate ever using. We have a barrel lock that I don't anticipate ever using. Store your gun properly, you shouldn't need this thing. We have a little envelope with the test round in it. And we have some documentation and the general issue stuff that every gun manufacturer sends to you, most of which y'all will never even look at. And then we have this. This is an HKS speed loader that you'll notice has been neutered. Interestingly enough, the grips that are shipped with a 642 Airweight are just actually a little bit too thick on the left-hand side to accept a speed loader. It's going to be really difficult for me to get a good video of this, so you'll have to forgive me for not trying to do so. But needless to say, if you have one of these that's unmodified, 5 rounds in it, and you try to get those rounds in there with these stock grip panels, you're going to bind up and it's not going to work. I took the ear off of one of these and turned it into a 4-shot speed loader, specifically because I can very easily get 4 rounds into the gun. And like I explained to my wife, the standard for use on this thing is shoot 5 rounds. And if you put this in, it's not because you need 4 more rounds to finish somebody off. It's because you need 4 rounds in the gun, so you're not holding an empty firearm on an aggressor while you wait for the police to show up. So this is not something I expect her to have to use in the heat of the moment. It's here so that she has 4 more rounds on tap if need be. That being said, put that up out the way. My personal feelings on 642 Airweight, and I'm not going to go into too much depth on this because honestly, it's a fairly simple weapon. I will say this much. This is a double action only revolver. You'll notice it has no hammer. That is kind of a mixed bag because one of the true benefits of a revolver is the ability to pull back the hammer and shoot this thing single action with a nice light trigger pull to get the best possible accuracy. The problem comes in with that hammer is that if you're trying to extract this from a holster, if you're pulling it out from underneath your shirt, if you're pulling it out of a pocket, that hammer is just begging to get caught on something and stop your draw. Also, if you get a piece of clothing crammed down between the hammer and the firing pin, there's a possibility that you could actually get a light primer strike or not even cause the hammer to hit the firing pin. So we've got a couple things going against us for using a hammer for these small, lightweight, kind of, these weapons of last resort as far as a carry gun. But taking the hammer off and making this a double action only gun brings the new problem of I now have no ability to pull that hammer back and be able to get a nice, clean, even trigger break and get the best possible accuracy out of what is admittedly a very small, rudimentary set of sights. This is basically a gutter sight and a front sight post. I don't know how well y'all can see that, but that's not exactly confidence inspiring. This is a 5 to 7 yard gun at best. I'm sure somebody out there is going to tell me, well, I shoot at 25 yards with my J-frame, and you're just awesome. You impress me. Go be impressive somewhere else. I'm going to tell you that the average person with a reasonable amount of training is not going to make good, well-aimed hits on a target past 10 yards with this firearm. 15 if you really are high speed. 25 if you spend a ton of time practicing, but let's face it, the average person is not going to practice that often. I don't practice with this gun extremely often. It's my wife's. I have my own firearms I practice with, but I will say that for the amount of practice I've put in with this firearm, I'm good for about 12, 15 yards max. Anything past 15 yards, and my shot group starts opening up a lot, really quickly. I'll say that for a belly gun, for a 5 to 7 yard gun, this is perfect, honestly. Being double action only, check we're clear one more time. All you're literally doing is getting a hold of the gun, getting a hold of your other hand, and just squeezing the trigger back 5 times in rapid succession. And 38 Special is not exactly a powder puff round. I mean, when you get into the hotter plus P stuff that's meant for self-defense, it's pretty authoritative little round. It's not 357 Magnum, but out of a gun this small, it's really going to do the job. But, those are my thoughts on it. I don't disapprove of the firearm. It's not my first choice. If I were looking at revolvers for self-defense firearm, like I kind of am right now, I'd be looking at something in 357 Magnum. I wouldn't be looking at aluminum frame gun because I don't mind having a heavier frame. This was my wife's decision. She wanted the aluminum frame. She wanted 38 Special instead of 357 Magnum. So this is what we got her based strictly on her requirements. And there really hasn't been any work done to it. I mean, the only thing I did was I deburred the backside of the trigger a little bit where it was pinching her and smoothed out the face of it a little bit. And I did open up the side plate of this gun and put in a Wilson Combat spring kit, replaced the main spring and replaced the trigger rebound spring. And that made a lot of difference in the weight of pull of this firearm. I don't have a gauge to put on here and tell you exactly what the result was, but made a pretty sizable difference in the weight of pull for this. She definitely appreciates it now a lot more. So that'd be the only thing I'd really recommend for a J-frame or a 642 Airweight. If you're looking at them, look into some of the proven manufacturers and their spring kits to bring that trigger pull weight down just a little bit. I hesitate to say go too light because the lighter you go, the greater risk that you're going to have light primer strikes, and light primer strikes from a self-defense firearm are a no-go. We need 100% reliability out of this firearm or it's not doing its freaking job. But if you can take the trigger weight down just a little bit, it really does make the gun a lot more shootable. It improves your ability to make those good hits, bearing in mind that now instead of being able to pull the hammer back, we have that long trigger pull, And you can see my front side post jumping around just a little bit through the length of that pull. That's a certain amount that's unavoidable. It's very, very difficult to get that trigger pull down perfect without messing with your side picture at all. Somebody out there is an expert at it. You're awesome. You impress me. I can't. And I would venture to say that the average person probably cannot as well. But I wanted to share my thoughts on the Smith Wesson 642 Airweight. Great firearm for if you're looking for a revolver for self-defense, for close range, personal defense. This would not be a bad option. If you want something in 357 Magnum, you're not looking at this gun. If you are looking for, I mean, honestly, anything in the J-frame model or in the extremely small revolver category, this is going to compare against, say, Taurus and maybe a Ruger, the small Ruger LCR and the LCRX, but I don't believe any of those really have the aluminum frame like this does. I think Ruger might actually have one that I think has some of the gun is polymer, and I'd have to look up the specs on that to tell you how it compares to this. But I can tell you that when we picked this up, this was really the only gun out there that fit my wife's requirements. She wanted small, lightweight revolver because that's her preference for a self-defense gun, and this ticked all the check boxes just perfectly. You know, a little bit of time and money spent putting a spring kit in here, which I won't get into because I'm not a professional gunsmith and I hate to give advice on something I'm not really adept at. But you can see the screws that bind the side plate to this gun. If you do some looking into on YouTube, there are reviews out there that tell you how to do this. I would say that if you are not already reasonably mechanically inclined, bring it to a gunsmith. I am extremely mechanically inclined, and it took me two tries to get this gun back together and working, because the inside of this thing looks like a Swiss watch. There's so much stuff going on in here, so many little bitty tiny springs and stuff. It's really easy to screw this up. But if you can get it done yourself, you're welcome to try. I'm not going to say the average home gunsmith with the right tools and some knowledge can't pull this off. I'm just saying that if you've never worked on a gun before, this is not where I would start. Let's leave it at that. But real quick and dirty, that is the Smith Wesson 642 Airweight. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. If you have any questions, please shout them out to me. I'm hoping at some point in the future I can maybe find a way to do some shooting videos where I'm actually able to show you kind of how these guns look and feel to shoot. At the moment, I don't really have a good option to pull that off, so I'm just doing tabletop reviews. But I hope that y'all take into account what I've said about this firearm. Revolvers are not my first choice for self-defense, but if they are yours, give this one a look. It's not a bad place to start, honestly. I think out the door, my wife and I got this for about $440 out the door a couple years back, and I don't believe the price has gone much off of that. That might sound like a lot of money, but guys, when you get into revolvers, you realize pretty quickly these things don't come cheap just because of the complexity involved in making them work. If you spend a lot of your time shopping for modern polymer striker-fired guns, the prices on revolvers, especially your high-end ones, will really make you choke quick. But give it a look. Let me know what you think. Please subscribe. Leave your comments. Leave me any criticism you have, and I'll talk to y'all next time.